So we'll look at the impact of a tariff on domestic producers. Now, in the end, we're going to be building up the changes in producer surplus and interpreting that. To that end, I'm not going to put the demand curve on this graph at all, because that distracts from the analysis of the impact on domestic producers. Okay, so let's originally start with the price of $100. This is free trade price. This is before the tariff. Small country, and that domestic firms are going to produce Q1 inside the domestic economy under the effects of perfect competition. And the revenue that they get is EF. That is the world price multiplied times the quantity that the domestic producers produce. F is the total variable cost of producing that amount. It's the area under the supply curve. So we have an initial producer surplus equal to E. Now let's imagine that the price has gone up to $110 because of a tariff of $10. Now, the marginal firm is, before the tariff, cost them $100 to make this product. Now they get $110. So they're going to increase production. And another firm with slightly higher costs comes in, and so on and so forth, until we get to the point where you have price equal to marginal cost. So the increase in the price from 100 up to 110 is obviously not drawn to scale, is going to increase the domestic production from Q1 to Q3. And the revenue that firms now receive is going to be price times quantity. It now costs F plus G to produce this good, or these goods. And the producer surplus is this entire triangle. So we've had an increase in producer surplus of this area as a consequence of the higher price associated with the tariff. Now I want to break these up into two components. That is to say, the increase in producer surplus. So on the one hand, you have some firms used to produce Q1 and still produce Q1. And every one of them is going to be getting a higher price for what they were willing to make before. So they're going to get $110 for all Q1 units. $110 when they were willing to do it for only 100. So H represents the pure profit associated with being in the market before and in the market afterwards. So H is an increase in producer surplus for those who continue to produce in this market. But you also have some firms who weren't able to produce before who now get into the market. So they increase from Q1 to Q3, as I noted. And they now have profitable production at the higher price. And K is the producer surplus associated with new producers. These are firms that couldn't afford to produce before, but who now get into the market. So that's that's the breakdown of these two components to producer surplus. And this is a very common way to think about changes in producer surplus. One, as a consequence of an increase in price, you have some firms who just get a higher price for what they were going to do anyway. And then now you have an increase in production from firms who can now afford to do so. Okay, so that's the increase. HK is the increase in producer surplus.